border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
Throws deep downfield for the end zone, a lunging catch, and it's a score for the Herd, Jerron Woodyard. And it is 37-0, and Grant Wells is moving up toward a 300-yard passing performance in the first half. That is his 4th touchdown toss.
Story toward Jackson, got separation to the 20, to the 10, and he will go. Lucky Jackson from 54 yards out.
Pressure off the edge. Screen delivers. What a catch, Levias, who brings it in. Armani Levias to the house. Touchdown, Marshall.
This will be from 52 yards from the far hash mark. John Haggerty, the punter, will hold. Jared Nash will snap it. It's definitely long enough. It is good. Unbelievable. The true freshman, Corey Munson, hammers it home from 52 yards.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. It feels like it's been for frickin' ever since we've been behind the mics bringing an episode for one reason or another. But I've got Trace with me right now. Hopefully, Stephen will be able to join the broadcast later on, and we'll relive the recap of the Western Kentucky FIU game, which was senior day. But right now, I've got Trace with me, and we're going to look ahead here as if Marshall's going to play a game, as if the Herd is actually going to line up and play a game, if it is possible. Really, really shocking that Marshall didn't get a game for 2 weeks. They haven't played since 75 week. Granted, this past weekend was their scheduled bye had it been a normal season. But they were unable to get anybody to fill, even though it looked like there were some chances for some teams that were available. The Conference USA is just not doing anybody any favors and helping anybody out, and I don't believe I just can't believe that. You got a nationally ranked team who's sitting there undefeated, and you're not doing anything you can do to try to get a game for them to keep climbing in the rankings, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Well, we saw what happens when you don't play and other teams do. So, Trace, let's talk about Rice. Rice 1-2 on the season. We know they canceled their football activities through like October or something. They were scheduled to play Marshall way back in the beginning of the season. It was supposed to be the conference opener for the Herd. But Rice, that game went by the wayside when Rice paused all their activities. So that game got put back on the books for this weekend. So Rice is coming to town. Marshall is a huge home favorite, 92.1% chance to win, according to the Power Index. And I saw a tweet, I think, earlier with the opening lines of in Vegas. It's not on the ESPN app right now as we record, but I am pretty sure I saw it was going to be Marshall minus 25 at home against the Owls. So what about Rice? You and I both thought they were going to be a much improved team coming into 2020 versus 2019. They just kind of looked like they were on the cusp of breaking through and being a little bit better than their record indicated last year. And COVID's not doing anybody any favors. It's not doing Rice any favors either. Like I said, they're a 1-2 team. Their only win was over Southern Miss back on Halloween, 30-6, which is right around the time Southern Miss finally imploded upon itself and fired the coach. And Jack Abraham is now since in the transfer portal and, all that kind of stuff. But we really don't know what Rice is. Are they good? Are they good at beating bad teams or what? Their opponent's record 3 games in is 6-13. So, Marshall's going to be the first team they played probably with a legitimate pulse up to this point. It's been North Texas, which is a 3-3 team. North Texas is pretty good, but they're, not on the same level this year as the Herd is. All time, the record between the Herd and the Owls is 2-5 in favor of Marshall. Marshall's won the last 2 in a row, including that ever elusive trip and win in the state of Texas. 20-7 last year over the Owls. So there are a few things we can talk about, Trace, before we get into this actual Rice game. I tell you what, we'll put it at the end. So let's talk about Rice. Based on what I just said about Rice, what the heck do you think is going to go on this week? I mean, is Rice the trap game now that Marshall's been off for a couple of weeks? Is this where it comes crashing down for the Herd? Is it just going to be business as usual?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said to you before we started recording, I really don't know anything about this Rice team. I mean, it's kind of hard to know anything about them when they've only played 3 games and it's the end of November. And it's kind of, like you said, they really haven't played anybody with the pulse, and who they have played, they've lost 2 of the games. But, I mean, they did that one game in Middle Tennessee was a crazy game, easily won. So it's not like I put it this way. I remember saying, Rice at the time they played Marshall last year was a winless team. I actually said they were a winless team with a pulse, and that's kind of where what I feel with them. Like, they're not like a good team, but like they're at least a relatively competitive bottom dwelling type team. I don't know if they're really. I mean, we don't even really know if they're a bottom dweller this year because they haven't played enough games. So like, if they played a full slate of games, they might have 4 or 5 wins right now. I don't know. So I mean, it's hard to tell, but I mean, Marshall just needs to. Steven doesn't agree. They just need to. I mean, when it comes to Marshall in this game, they just have to play their game. They just have to show up mentally and physically, emotionally, all that good stuff. I mean, it's like we were. I remember the last time Marshall had a big layoff like this. That was right before the Moonshine Throwdown, and they came out absolutely smoking in that game. So, like, I hope they would do the same thing in this one. You know, I mean, play with a little chip on their shoulder, maybe, which actually kind of leads me into one of my keys to victory later on, but play with a little chip on your shoulder. You know, you feel like everybody feels like you got a little snubbed in the playoff ranking. So you know what, go out there and show them that they can do what they want out there with whoever they play. You know, just stuff like that. So we'll see.
Well, if there is a possibility, or you know, if this has ever been a thing, this is a type of game where Marshall has nothing to gain. Really, I mean, a win's a win against a so-so team in Conference USA, so they really have nothing to gain other than keeping a game on the schedule and remaining undefeated. But they've got everything to lose. So if Rice is that team that if they're going to put together one game all season long, if this is the one that happens, this would be a monumentally bad loss for the Herd at home against a 1-win team when you're trying to keep the momentum of an undefeated season going. But look, I don't think that's really in the cards this week. We keep saying as long as Marshall plays their game, there's really nobody that's going to beat him in the conference this year, and it's proven to be true. So let's talk, about some guys that Herd fans are going to want to pay attention to through a 3-game sample. It's not a lot, but Rice does have a senior quarterback, and anytime you've got a senior quarterback, that's a positive. The guy's played a fair amount of football. He's not going to be prone to those freshman mistakes, you don't think, and he's having a pretty good season through 3 games. But, man, I'll tell you what, if anybody has a type for their playmakers, it's Rice, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So let's start with the quarterback. Number 4, Mike Collins, a 6'5", 217-pound senior. Nice big body. You'd like to think he'll be durable enough to take a few good licks and bounce back up against this vaunted Herd defense because Lord knows, based on the stat I'm getting ready to roll off here, he's going to take some licks. He's 53 out of 86 on the season, 802 yards, which is pretty good, 10 touchdowns through 3 games, only 1 interception, but he's been sacked 10 times against not very good competition. We're talking about Middle Tennessee, we're talking about Southern Miss, and we're talking about North Texas. Okay. Number 8, running back, Juma Ontivero, 5'10", 201-pound sophomore, 45 carries, 195 yards, no touchdowns on the ground. And number 6, running back, Kalon Griffin, 5'10", 215-pound freshman, 41 carries, 159 yards, no touchdowns on the ground. Neither starting running back has a touchdown on the ground. The big name that I remember from last year as far as offense goes is this next guy, number 10, wide receiver, Austin Trammell. He's been around forever, another 5'10", 185-pound senior, 16 catches, 335 yards. 6 of those 10 touchdowns from Collins have gone to Trammell. He's a good wide receiver. He is 20.9 yards per reception on average. Number 11 wide receiver Jake Bailey, 5'10", 180-pound sophomore, 9 catches, 147 yards, another 2 touchdowns through the air, 16.3 yards per reception. I know you didn't catch that when I said that, but every single playmaker outside the quarterback was 5'10" and between 180 and 215 pounds. All four of those guys are 5'10". They definitely have a style that they like to keep down there at Rice. So look, all in all, this Rice Owls offense is averaging 404 yards per game, 267 of those through the air, only 137 on the ground, and they're putting up 24 points per game. If you can't run the ball anyway, good luck against Marshall.
Yeah.
Putting it nicely. Good luck against Marshall. If you're averaging 137 yards against Middle Tennessee, North Texas, and Southern Miss, good luck, brother. So what do you think we're going to see from this Herd defense, Trace, based on what I just told you?
Based on your numbers there about how many sacks that they allow, I would like to go out there and hashtag grab sacks again. you know, got to keep that brand alive. You know, so I'd like to see that. I mean, of course I want to see that, but more than anything else, I just want to see them play like they've been playing. I mean, that's what we've all thought the whole year, that the best word to probably describe this defense this year has been just swarming. I want to see more swarming defense. I mean, there's not like, Rice, like you said, they have a plan. Like, I figure it's probably a lot of that kind of slot receiver, just dump down, check down type passes, like real short routes and stuff. I haven't watched them, but based on those numbers, attributes and all the stuff you were reading off there, it makes me feel like they're kind of not a real deep threat team. So, that probably plays in Marshall's hands, because Middle Tennessee was the exact same way, them pretty well. So I'd like to it's kind of boring to say, but I'd like to see the defense just keep playing the swarming, get in the backfield, recap and stuff, and I think they're more than capable of doing it, and I think that they probably will do it. I don't know. Even though Rice lost to Middle Tennessee, I kind of, for some reason, think Rice is a better team than Middle Tennessee. I don't know. Maybe that's just me thinking a little bit too hard about it, but we'll see. As long as Marshall can just do what they do, that's all I need.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that the Herd's not going to come out there and pretty much dominate. 404 yards a game is pretty good. Marshall's only averaging like around 450 or something like that. But again, it's a 3-game sample against 3 not so tough defenses. I hate to have to keep lumping North Texas into that, because they're a 500 ball club. They're 3-3. They're pretty decent, really. But Southern Miss is just bad. Middle Tennessee State's just bad. That's 3-10 from those two teams. So you really don't know what you got with Rice. But we do know what Marshall brings to the table. And if they want to run that little intermediate pass thing like Middle Tennessee did, you saw how that worked out for the Raiders. Not very well. And I tend to think that Mike Collins is probably not near the runner that Asher O'Hara is. So, Hey, good luck staying upright all game long. This could be a game that really everybody gets to feast a little bit, and not playing for 2 weeks. You like to think that everybody's healthy. We don't know. Marshall keeps everything close to the vest. So we'll see who trots out there, but I'd like to think everybody's healthy, not playing since 75 week. So let's talk about Rice's defense. It all starts with linebacker number 6, Blaze Aldridge, a 6'2", 220-pound senior, 32 tackles, leads the team, 15 solo, 1 sack. Number 1 linebacker Antonio Montero, the 6', 216-pound junior, 23 tackles, 7 of those solo, and a big guy in the middle. Defensive lineman, wow, what a big body. Number 92 defensive lineman Elijah Garcia, 6'5", 302. How about that? Good luck moving that body around. 19 tackles, 7 solo. All told, the Rice defense is allowing 369 yards, 162 on the ground, 207 through the air. But those impact plays, they don't have a lot of them. Granted, it's 3 games, but they just don't have a lot of them. 4 sacks total as a team, 1 interception as a team, 1 forced fumble as a team. Herd offense, Trace, what do you think?
Well, much like the defense, just do what you do. When it comes to Marshall's offense, there's no secrets. We know what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to establish the run. They're going to try to just dominate the line of scrimmage, win the trenches. And if Rice wants to stack the box like Middle Tennessee did, or like everybody else has done, well, Grant Wells could go over top and throw for 330 yards. So it's kind of hard. It's like pick your poison. I think if you could just pick one aspect to get going offensively, I think I'd rather it be the running game. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as long as Marshall's having success moving the ball in the end zone. It's all that matters. It really doesn't matter if it's coming from the run or the pass. But I think I'd like to see Marshall get the run going again. They ran the ball pretty well against Middle Tennessee, even though they stacked the living crap out of the box. They did run the ball 4.5 yards as a team, almost 2 yards as a team. Even though Brendan Knox only had 70 yards, they were, determined not to let him. They just have options in the running game that you can't just solely focus on one guy. So I think Marshall can do that. They could get the run game going, have a big day on the ground. I mean, I could see Grant Wells having a big game through the air. The last 2 games he's played, he's thrown. Let's see, what was it? I think it's like 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games, I believe it was, with no picks. So he's been rolling lately. So it's really hard to game plan for Marshall's offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, you said exactly some of the things I want to talk about in my points to victory, so I don't want to give it away. But this is Marshall's game to control. Pretty much however they feel like doing it. If they want to do it on the ground, okay, they probably can. They go so deep at running back that, you can gang up and stop somebody, but you're not going to stop everybody all day long. I mean, they just can come at you at so many different directions. It doesn't have to be between the tackles. I mean, it just doesn't. So, and if you decide you want to sell out and put 10 in the box and just live and die by letting Grant Wells and those guys pick you apart, he can do it. So, this ought to be just another put one in the left-hand column game, move along, and actually just hope it gets played. The biggest competitor this week is probably going to be the Rona. And if the game gets played, that's going to be, the easy part, I think.
Yeah.
But Corona could ultimately get the victory. And, I don't think that there's a game plan or a backup plan to get Marshall a game. There hasn't been for 2 weeks when there should have been. And not just Marshall, but every team that had, that sat while their game got canceled, they should have been paired up with one another somehow, some way. But we'll talk about that. So what do you got for your keys to victory? What's the Herd got to do to get a dub?
Well, my normal 4, I have my normal 4, but the 5th one would be just actually have the game played. I know, in the grand scheme of things, Marshall's played 7 games this year, and they've played more games than most teams have this year. But it's irritating. It's so aggravating to just not know, and then when you see that the game's canceled, it just sucks. It just sucks. So please let the game happen. I mean, that's all I'm saying. Let the game happen, and then the next 4 safely, of course. And then my 4 points of victory are, of course, safely. The first point I wrote down is don't let the rust beat you. I mean, if they come out and have a little rusty stuff, but they haven't played since November 14th. We don't know. This is the questions that we had heading into the Moonshine Throwdown game. They hadn't played in 3 weeks before that. They won't have played for 3 weeks here either. So you can't let rust beat you. You can't come out slugging, because Rice has enough, I think, to at least make you sweat for a while. I mean, I don't know how long they could keep it up, but I mean, especially if Marshall comes out rusty and just looks all really bad and turnovers and stuff. They've been really clean with the ball lately, knock on wood. So hopefully that continues. But you can't let you can't play rusty and let that beat you early on. So if they can come out sharp again, then I think they'll have no problems at all here. Next point is take what they give you. Rice defensively, we think we know what they're going to do, probably if they try to sell out to stop the run. So if they're going to try to put 8 or 9 in the box, just take what they give you through the air, whether it's 5-yard out routes, whether it's, go routes deep. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Just take what they give you. I mean, don't try to force things. Just let it come. Just let it flow naturally. I mean, I feel like if Marshall just does that, then they'll have a lot of success offensively because, like I said, you can't just focus on one part of Marshall's offense because they can beat you through the air and on the ground. So just take what Rice gives you. It's a simple, one of the simplest concepts in football, but I think it's a pretty big one in this game. Next point is make the Rice offense one-dimensional. And it doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, of course, Marshall's probably going to take away the run because they always do. I mean, they're like got to be number 1 or 2 in the country in run defense. So, I mean, just keep taking away the run. And then I don't know if Rice, that quarterback's got some good stats, but it is against weak competition, and it's only been 3 games. So we don't know how good the guy really is. So if Marshall can make Rice one-dimensional, then Marshall should have another big game defensively. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I don't think Rice can beat him like that. So to make him one-dimensional at least. Of course, if you could take away everything, that'd be great, but at least make him one-dimensional. That goes without saying, kind of, but I think it's important. And my last point is, which I actually mentioned this a little bit earlier, play with a chip on your shoulder. It's been a while since they've had a chance to play. A lot of people are talking about how they feel like they kind of undersold a little bit in the college football playings, which I would agree with that. We'll get more into that later, but I'd like to see him play with a big chip on their shoulder here. I think that'd go a long way, and they could really do some damage. So play with a chip on your shoulder, Herd. That's what I'm saying.
I've got a lot of the same points. Generally, like we both kind of have every week. But you mentioned it earlier, and I actually wrote this down as my number one point to victory, and it's the pick your poison offense. That's what Marshall should run. That's kind of what their specialty has become. Pick your poison. What do you want to get beat by? Do you want to get beat by the long pass that ignites the crowd, or do you want to get beaten by the body blow, then the long run offense that ignites the crowd? Number two for me, I don't think you need to take any unnecessary risks in this game. I don't think Rice is going to be able to sustain and keep it close enough to where you're going to have to do that. And I really can't find a good reason why you would want to do anything that you don't have to do. And probably your base offense is going to be enough with a wrinkle here or there. Number three, given those points, number three for me is you will need style points. It's going to matter. We just saw some of these other G5 programs keep pace, keep winning. Marshall's not playing. So having a 3-week layoff, it's kind of vital that they come out and just obliterate Rice if they can. Being able to lay off for 3 weeks and then come up and put 60 points on the board, I think will say a lot about Marshall. It's like we're still here. You know, we don't, rust doesn't affect, it's not in our vocabulary this year. You know, we can take a month off and still come out and put up 60. It doesn't matter. And number four that goes along with that is that you need to leave no doubt who the finest team in the conference is this year. And definitely who the finest team on the field is that day. Do those four things. I mean, a win's going to come fairly easily anyway. It's going to be about getting out of there healthy, keeping your playmakers upright, and piling on the style points to impress some pollsters. I feel like when it comes down to it, unless Coastal Carolina, if Coastal Carolina wins this week, there's no way Marshall's going to get around them. There's no way. I mean, they've got a top 25 Liberty team right now that's coming in to play. And if Liberty gets that win, Marshall really needs Liberty to beat Coastal. And they could. Liberty's pretty good. They are 1 point shy of a perfect season right now. And I know this podcast is well aware of how that goes, being 1 point shy of perfection, no matter what side of the field you're on with that. And how funny that is, you know, that we're 1 day removed from the 6-year anniversary of that game happening, which was awesome. But let's put up some style points. They're gonna need to prove that they're better than Coastal Carolina. I watched Coastal Carolina play against Appalachian State, and I think Marshall would beat that team up and down the field. I do. Coastal just, Appalachian State had no real answer for like one guy, and he lit him up most of the game. And at the same time, you know, in the first half of that game, App State ran up and down the field on Coastal. So, you know, whatever. But being 8-0 or 9-0 or whatever they are versus 7-0 while the Herd's sitting at home, you can't help but move them up the polls. They're playing, Marshall's not. You got to move them up the polls. Fair's fair. So who you got this week for your 200-proof player, Trace?
Yeah, I'm going defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Derek Pitts. I think he's had a really, really good year. I think he's having a really good year, kind of the year that we thought he could have when he came in last year. You know, of course, didn't play much last year. He's kind of like, I mean, Marshall seems like they have a lot of success at the safety position over the years. You know, of course, everybody remembers Malik Gant. He's sort of in that mold. I mean, he's not like there yet, but like he's kind of Malik Gant a little bit, especially the way he plays close to the line of scrimmage. Like we always mentioned, how Gant could just put him anywhere out there on defensive side of the ball and he'd make plays. Pitts is kind of the same way. He's just kind of a workhorse guy, you know, high energy, high motor kind of guy, and I really think he could have a really big game here. I mean, you could go with anybody on that defense for a 200-proof player, but I'd like to see Pitts have maybe his best game so far at Marshall. I'd like maybe an interception. I mean, I don't know. That'd be cool to see. So I'd go with Derek Pitts here. I think he could really impress in this one.
Yeah, that's a good pick. It's not a guy we talk about a lot here, and I like the comparison to Malik Gant. I think they're a lot alike, very similar type players, but I believe the difference would be just in the philosophy of how the defense is run now. You're talking about two different. I mean, yes, J.C. Price is there, but this is Brad Lambert's offense now, as opposed to when Malik Gant was on the roster. So they utilized the safeties a little bit differently, but Pitts is so talented, such a rangy type guy. I think that's a good pick. He gets overshadowed quite a bit by guys like Devontae Beckett for good reason, and Darius Hodge for good reason. These guys are just studs in their own right. I'm going offense this week. Give me Grant Wells again. I didn't pick him, against Middle Tennessee State. That was Casey's pick, and it was a great pick. But I think Wells will stay hot. I like him to come out and have another solid day, taking care of the football. I just feel like Rice is going to load the box up, and that's going to leave Wells to just explode if he can. And as an asterisk to that, as a piggyback to that, give me Corey Gamage as a co-starring 200 proof player. I believe against Middle Tennessee, he's shown that he's starting to emerge as one of the better deep threats on Marshall's roster, and potentially one of the finest in the conference. We'll see if that trajectory continues. What you got for a score prediction, Trace?
Yeah, I have Marshall winning the game 38-13. And if that spread of minus 25 is actually the spread, then the herd would cover it. So looking at that, if you want to look at it that way. So I'm going to say 38-13. I mean, I don't feel like you were talking about if Marshall could obliterate Rice and they need to. I don't think that they will obliterate Rice, but I don't think the game's going to be close either. So, obliteration would be like Eastern Kentucky game or something like that. I don't think it's going to be like that. I mean, I think Rice has enough of a pulse, or if you want to call it a pulse, enough to be able to put up a little bit of a fight in this game. I mean, Marshall can't. You can't take these games for granted, especially now that you don't know when you're actually going to get to play. You got to. Every game is like almost like a championship game. I mean, you got to really come out there because you just don't know when you're going to play. You could go 3 weeks, 4 weeks without playing a game. I mean, Rice has only played one game since September, I think, or something like that. Or it's only been one game in the last month or two. Put it that way. It just doesn't happen. It's a weird year of all time, probably, and you just don't know when you're going to get to play. The game's going to get canceled. So when these games happen, Marshall need to take care of business, and they only have 2 games left on the schedule right as of now, and holds true to them. If Marshall wins this game, they win the East. So I'm going to look at it that way. They have to win one more game. That's all it has to take is to win the East, is one more game. So you just got to, you can't take it for granted. You can't go out there and, act like you're all high and mighty. You got to really focus in on this game. So if Marshall's focused, they'll have no problems here. So 38-13.
Give me the herd 41-10. And if Marshall, I'm sure, is well aware that if they win this game, they're going to win the East because there just won't be enough games left, then you better believe they're motivated to get the job done, because they were in this position last year and they let it slip away, and they never were able to regain control. And this is a different team. So this team is not, built really to kind of let one slip away. It's going to take, it can happen, but it's going to take a lot of help for Rice to get this win. Marshall's just going to have turnover after turnover that Rice is then going to have to turn into touchdowns. And I can't see that happening. So give me the herd 41-10. That's a good enough of a win from 31-point win. That's enough to call it a blowout win. If you double up by 4 scores, or if you go up by 4 scores and get that dub, then call it a blowout. It is what it is. As indicated, Steven is here with us. We are going to talk some Topper football. We're going to talk about the Toppers' most recent game, Senior Day victory against FIU at the Houch. The Toppers bidding farewell to quite a few of the better players that have passed through the program. These, in all time, really. Some all-timers are going to have played their final game at the Houch. Barring anything last minute that gets put back on the schedule. I don't know that anything would, since Western really hasn't missed a game yet. But nonetheless, Toppers got the big win 38-21 over FIU, bringing the record to 4-6, 3-3 in conference. Not to jump forward, but if Western gets this win over Charlotte, that'll make them 5-6, 4-3 in conference, and be in steady lone control of third place in the Conference USA East, which is pretty good considering the start that we saw from Western Kentucky. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about this one. The 4 indicators, kind of a weird one, of course, but the final indicator, those turnovers, are the story of the game. 278 yards for Western, 263 for FIU. Toppers get outgained in time of possession, +6 almost plus 7, 26. Well, it is plus 7, almost plus 8, 26.09 for the Tops, 33.51 for FIU. FIU gains more first downs, 17-13, but it's turnovers, Stephen, that is the difference in the game. 2 for FIU, none for Western Kentucky, and both of those FIU turnovers resulted in touchdowns for the Tops. Just basically, what do I want to slingshotting the Toppers into a scoring fiasco and taking control of the game. It started out slow for the Tops, scoreless in the first quarter, trailed at halftime 13-10. Then, like I said, 2 defensive scores, 24-13 before you know it, and there it just goes from there. They're kind of trading scores till the end of the game. You look up at the end, and the Tops almost got 40 on the board. It was senior day. And, Steve, I know you were there at the game. You showed me some pictures and, of course, limited attendance. The Toppers still tried to honor their seniors accordingly. But a little bit of bad luck sprung up from, one of our favorite folks and one of our favorite families in Topper Nation. And I know you tried to pick up the slack a little bit. So come in here and let's talk about senior day against FIU.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great victory. Like you said, we started slow. And then, I turn around and blink and we have the D'Angelo Malone forced fumble, scoop and score. I literally turned around to get a drink. Felt like as soon as I turned around, I hear the crowd erupt and Eli Brown has a pick 6. And that just kind of felt like, kind of the nail in the coffin. You could kind of see the swag on the sideline. I think we've talked about that several times this year, that, the boys were juiced up on the sideline, just having fun. And from there, it was just kind of coasting to the victory. But it was nice to finally put 30 on the board. Hadn't seen it, hadn't done it, first time this season. But knew we were capable. We got plenty of playmakers and, love seeing the defense turn into offense and score some points for us. But yeah, the pregame festivities, the senior night stuff, man, I mean, it was one of the more special ones that I'll probably remember for probably the rest of my life. I mean, to be honest, I'm not being facetious in any way, shape, or form. Of course, you alluded to David Jost, the Jost family. They were unable to attend to see Seth off on his final home game at the Houch. He actually called me, the week leading up to the game. We talk, kind of, I don't want to say regularly, but, every once in a while we touch base with each other and just chat. And he touched base. He called. I was on my way home from work. And I could just tell something was wrong. As I'm talking to him, I was like, something's wrong. I was like, what's going on, man? He was like, well, my wife tested positive. We're in quarantine. I'm not going to be able to go to the game. And, if you know this man, I know obviously you do, but anyone that knows this man knows how passionate and how much love and pride he has for Seth and just Topper football and just being able to be there. You can just see it in his eyes. He beams with pride, just getting to watch him play. And it was just deflating for him. I know it was for him. And really it was for me. And I was just like, man, I really hate that. And what could I do? And then leading up to the game, I was like, man, I said, I will do what I can. I said, I can't promise it, just because, the morning of games with kids and families and et cetera, it could be crazy. I said, but if I'm at the stadium, I will call you. I will FaceTime you and get as close as I possibly can so that you can, hopefully see the festivities. And, as luck would have it, I got there probably 45 minutes before kickoff. I saw the seniors, families setting up on the berm area. And right before they got started, myself and Hank Wilson made our way down on the new side. We were on the bleachers at the tunnel where the Toppers come out onto the field, literally as close to the field as you can get, right above and behind the players as they were walking up the steps onto the berm. To be greeted by the coach and AD and their families. And I was able to FaceTime David, and it was just really emotional just to see him on the phone watching his son and just to see the look in his eyes and just the pain of knowing that he couldn't be there. but being able to provide that moment for him. And then also at the same time, Hank was taking pictures with his phone, some good still pictures, and also sent those to him. But everything that David said was, he had a great view, from the FaceTime video. He could hear the audio, in the stadium announcing him. Then after Seth was greeted by his family on the berm, and he walked down onto the field to see Helton and Stewart, and then walk out to the 50-yard line with the other seniors. I yelled to him. I said, Seth, just yelled his name, probably 15, 20 yards away from him, and he heard me. He looked at me, and I pointed to my phone. I said, your dad's on the phone. And he just gave me a thumbs up. And after the game, I kind of felt bad for yelling at him, him being kind of in the zone of enjoying those festivities. But when he talked to his dad after the game, he heard me. He understood what I was trying to relay, that, I had his dad on the phone so they could enjoy that moment. And it really, it's hard to put in words, but it really just was a special moment that I got to be a part of. And, David has thanked me profusely since that happened. But really, as much as I've been around that family and just tailgated with them and talked with them, and they've just taken me and they've taken us in and kind of embraced what we're doing. It really kind of was my honor to be able to facilitate that and to bring that, to them so that David and Ruthie could enjoy the senior night, even from afar, even through the phone screen. I was really honored to be able to do that for the family. And it truly was emotional. And like I said, I will never, ever, ever forget that senior night at Western.
Man, it's just so cool that you'd be able to do that, because they're probably not showing that on TV pregame, so that you're not really going to be able to see that if you guys aren't able to do that. And the fact that you were able to get down that close to where it was visible, you could hear it. And just the fact that it occurred to you to do that is just so awesome, because, you're right, David and the Josts and the Wits and the Keys and all those folks that, we may or may not have seen play for the last time. They've just been so good to us, and it's gonna be really horrible to see them go if indeed this was the final time that they play a home game. Of course I say that because of course we keep talking about everybody gets an extra year of eligibility if they want it, but we don't know who's going to do what and what's going to happen. But those folks have just been so good to us over the past few years. And, I really have only gotten to see them once a year. Steven gets to see them a lot, but, I try to make my trek either to Bowling Green or to Huntington to watch the Moonshine Throwdown every year. And I get to see those guys for a couple hours once a year. And those gals, of course, the Ruthie and Nicole and them, they're all good to us. So I hate that, I couldn't share in that moment. I know David and them it was killing them to not be able to be there. Cause you're right. He's like super passionate about, Topper football. He's very proud of the job that Seth does. And, I know what that's like to a certain extent. My son's not a Division I athlete or anything like that, but you still beam with pride when your kid does well, when they achieve. You're pretty proud of that. And, I'm just really glad that you and Hank were able to do that. That's just such a cool story and such a cool moment. And, my heart really sunk when you said, yeah, Dave was not going to be able to go to the game. And I hurt for him, it just sucked to hear that news, but, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope that, things are, getting better and, it's just a cool story. I'm really glad you could do that. Look, I'm not going to turn this into like Stephen, Trace, and I care a lot about, I'm not going to turn into that, but man, we do. We care about the people out there, the Topper fans, the Herd fans. You guys support the hell out of us, and we like to support the hell out of you guys right back. So just what a cool story. But let's talk about the game. I hate to switch gears, but man, that's just such a cool story. But we got to talk about the game. Leading the way, I guess, for the Topper offense, Piggy T, 14 of 25, 121 yards, 9 carries for -9 yards, but 2 touchdowns on the ground. Figure that one out. And total QBR of 11.9. Gage Walker had a great day. Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Gage Walker, 17 carries, 127 yards, 1 touchdown, including a big 54-yard scamper. Mitchell Tinsley leading the way for the Topper wide receivers, both in receptions and in yardage. 3 catches, 28 yards. Therese Traynor, 2 catches, 24 yards. Defensively for the Tops, Devin Keys leading the way. Actually, there were 3 guys with 10 tackles, but Dev Key leading the way, 10 tackles, 7 solo. How about freshman linebacker Aaron Key? 10 tackles, 7 solo. Antoine Kincaid, 10 tackles, 4 solo, half a tackle for loss, and 2 passes defended. Eli Brown, 8 tackles, 5 solo, 3 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hurry, 1 interception, which resulted in a touchdown, 22 yards. And Roger Cray, 6 tackles, 3 solo, 3 passes defended, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown to boot. Braden Narvison, 1-1 on field goals from 39 yards out, and 5 of 5 on extra points. And John Haggerty dropping absolute A-bombs, 8 total punts, 426 total yards punting for an average of 53.3 yards and a long of 63. Steve, game-wise, after the slow start, after things started getting turned on, they really found a groove. I mean, outside of, it just always sounds like we pile on the quarterback. But quarterback didn't have a stellar day, and the Toppers still put up almost 38 or almost 40 points. They put 38 up on the board. So offensively, the numbers weren't there in chunks. Gage Walker had a great day, but it was really the defense. This was the defense we thought we were going to see most of the year. So it's really good. At least they were able to put it together in a big way, one good time, and it helps that it was on senior day, send a lot of those guys out the right way at home. What do you got to say? I mean, what do you have to say after it got going? It looked like a little bit of a different team. The swagger was there a little bit.
Yeah, you really hope that juice kind of carries over to the next game. But, yeah, the energy and just everything coming together, finally just clicking, not getting stuck at 20, 21 points and just, being outscored by the other team. Talked about Piggy. I mean, I think we all kind of know what his limitations are. He's not going to stretch the field vertically on you. And just his height and seeing receivers, we know that. He had a couple untimely sacks, third down sacks where that he takes them. I don't understand it. We don't get rid of the ball, holds on to it too long. It takes a bad sack. That's why he was in the negative yards, but still had 2 close, goal line touchdowns that he kind of vultured away from, Gage, that probably should have been running back touchdowns, but it is what it is. You talked about the freshman linebacker, Aaron Key. He actually played so much time because Kyle Bailey, one of our other seniors, I don't believe he was even dressed for the game because he had been ejected the week before. And I don't think he wasn't eligible to play the first half. And as far as I'm aware, he wasn't dressed to even play the second half for whatever reason. I'm not sure. So Key stepped in admirably and had a very good game. Of course, Devin Key, the mayor, the all-time leading tackler now at Western Kentucky and hit in their FBS history, did what he does. He comes down close to the line and he's making plays. He has a nose for the ball. Then Eli Brown, Roger Cray. Roger Cray is near the top of the nation in pass breakups. So is Deontay Ruffin. Both of those guys are like in the top 10 in pass breakups in the nation. It's just nice to see all that pressure on the defense kind of being alleviated by the offense moving the ball some, putting some points on the board. Of course, the defense did it for 14 points themselves on a scoop and score and interception, pick 6. But it really makes their life a lot easier. They had a lot more energy, just a lot more juice. And it was just nice to have a convincing win that even after the slow start, really never felt like it was in doubt once those 2 quick scores happened. Even if the score was a little close there at first, there was just so much energy and juice in the stadium that, this felt like we were just going to walk away and win. I mean, FIU was getting shut down. They did have a late touchdown to get to 21 points, I believe it was. But our defense was just swarming, kind of that term we use for Marshall's defense, which is absolutely correct for them because those guys are missiles going to the ball, when it's out in the flat or wherever it is. They get to the ball and they bring you down. They don't miss tackles. It was nice to see the WKU defense, who we expected to be the strength of the team, kind of step up and ring that bell and really make Clayton White proud and get some turnovers and get some points off those turnovers. It was nice to see. If that was going to be the last game for a lot of those guys, always nice to send them out with a victory. And overall, just a great and fun game.
Yeah, it was super good effort. We talked about several times that the parts were greater than the sum of the whole with this defense a lot of times, and it was nice to finally see the sum of the whole be better than the individual parts, or really the parts just come together and elevate the entire unit. We've been waiting for this, man, and it was awesome to finally see come to fruition. So let's talk about some grades, and then we'll flip the script and we'll look ahead to Charlotte on a super early morning kick. So I guess, PKT is the only quarterback that drew a snap, so he's the only one you can grade on. So what do you got for him? The line wasn't stellar, but he did have a couple of down close TDs.
Yeah, effectively, he is a game manager. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but he is just someone that needs to manage the game and manage the offense, not turn the ball over, and keep drives moving. Know when to use his legs, know when to find his targets. And for the most part against FIU, he did that. Stat line wasn't great, but I'm just not sure that his arm is capable of throwing for 300 plus. I think his arm talent is, but I just think his vertically challenged height probably isn't throwing for that many yards. I'm not sure if he ever has or will, but I just don't see it happening at Western Kentucky in his short amount of games left with us. I give him a B-, maybe a tick above where he should be. It's kind of an average game, but when you get a victory, I guess I'll grade him on a curve and give him a B-.
Well, okay. That's that's a pretty good grade, to be honest with you. Really the only positive is that there was no interception and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Other than that, there's not much to write home about. QBR of 11.9 is 99 times out of 100 is not going to get it done, dude. But you can see what will happen behind stellar run game and stellar defense. You can put up a lot of points and you can get a win. So how about offensively as a whole? We talked about it, less than 300 total yards, but Gage Walker had a great day. And nobody really had the big day through the air. Of course, there wasn't a lot of yardage to be had. So what do you got for this offense?
Yeah, the offense still it started to lean a little bit more towards the run, which I'm perfectly content with again, the limitations we have behind center. I like leaning towards the run a little bit, even though we do have plenty of guys out wide that can catch the ball, even though it seems like every week another wide receiver transfers. Another story for another day. But the offense, I will give them just a flat B. We finally put up 38 points, albeit 14 of those were defensively. That still would be 24 points, which just
That's
off
enough
top of my
for a
head,
win.
Yeah, say enough for a win, and probably is our season high just off the top of my head, even if we didn't have those 14 defensive points. So I'm going to give them a B. It wasn't great. It wasn't, blowing the doors off, but man, we had 38 points. There was juice and energy and excitement, and finally, you just kind of breathe that sigh of relief, like, finally did it. 30 points.
Yeah. And the one thing we're not really driving home is a point that we kept driving home earlier in the season. They had no turnovers, and that's the big thing. That's what was sinking this team quite a bit in several games. And they didn't turn the ball over, and we see what happens. You run the ball well, you play great defense, you don't turn the ball over, you can get past subpar quarterback play. You can get past a mediocre to a subpar passing game day. And we saw just that. So how about the defense? This is the one we've been waiting for all season. The guys, the usual suspects had great games. I featured some guys just because they had tackles. I featured some guys because they had touchdowns. But the usual suspects impacted the game the way you would think they would. So what do you got for this defense?
The defense got an A. They earned an A. They got an A. Coach White is proud. I know Hilltopper Nation is proud. D'Angelo was disruptive. Juwan was disruptive. Ricky Barber. New face Aaron Key making plays. The back end was impressive. Just all in all, just beautiful game by the defense. And really, really hope that swagger carries over to the Charlotte game and any possible bowl invitation and game that we may receive and play in. So defense earns an A. They get an A. They got a victory. Scored some points. Had a lot of fun and juice and swagger doing it. So, man, gotta love it. Gotta love to give them an A this game.
I do, and I'm glad that you did. They absolutely earned it. We've been harsh on them at times, and they've deserved it. We had to use terms like getting gashed more than we thought we would, and especially in different ways. It just wasn't a lot to boast about early on. And this is a good one. This is one that's a sigh of relief. But the bad part about that is a lot of the guys that made plays may or may not have played their final game at the Ouch. So, relish in it while you got it. And let's hope, like you said, that it springs forward for one more game. This is a big game we'll talk about with Charlotte. But coming up, you may have more than one, but this is a big game. The one on the schedule is the biggest. Just beat Charlotte. It'll put you in front of them in the Conference USA East standings. It'll put you one game outside of being 500. I mean, this is a big one. You'll have a winning record in the conference if you beat Charlotte. So special teams. Let's get the grade for special teams. Narveson, 100 across the board. Haggerty, Jiminy Christmas, give the guy the Ray Guy Award based off of this game alone. I mean, what do you got?
Legatron did his thing. That 39-yard field goal was sexy. Legatron, trademark, asterisk, use it. Feel free to use it. Legatron, he's a good kicker. And then Haggerty, I mean, that Aussie boot, man, dude was booming kicks. I mean, I think he pinned him down inside the 10 twice. I think inside the 24 times. He was just, if a kicker can be in the zone and just do no wrong, he was in the zone and could do no wrong. He was flipping the field and probably had just as much of the reason for our success and getting the victory as anybody else, because field position always going to be huge and important. Put them in bad positions, put us in great positions. And the special teams gets an A. They probably get an A+. They probably get an A++, man. Those guys had a great game. I think we did give up a kick return for a touchdown, but I'm just talking about our specialist kickers right now. They get an A+.
I'd forgotten about the kick return for a touchdown, but as you said that, I did remember you tweeting something to the effect of there wasn't no phantom fair catch call on that one or something.
Dude, I was yelling it at the game, and the cameraman on the field turned around. He's like, "Nice try, buddy." I was like, I tried.
Yeah, I mean the return game was nothing to write home about really. A kick return just 1 for 14 yards, negative yardage on punt returns. So let's just stick with the two specialists. Hey, let's toss the long snapper in there too, because you can't put him through the uprights if you don't get a good snap. So shout out to everybody involved on the from the specialist point of view. Coaching, 38-21, man. Look, senior day, home game, had to have it. FIU coming in was one of the worst, if not the worst team that has played multiple games in Conference USA. This is not one that Western could have afforded to lose or really had a close win. So I think the coaches probably felt a little bit of that, and, they did their job. So what do you got for them this week?
Yeah, I'm going to give them a B. I mean, if I was separating it out, obviously I'd give Clayton White an A, and Ellis Helton probably closer to a B. But just a flat grade, I'm going to go with a B. Sorry, loud.
Man, your youngins are happy. They are pumped up about this win.
They just got out of the bathtub, so yeah, they're juiced up. But coaching wise, just a flat score across the board. We're going to go with B. Anytime you get a victory, it's going to bump that grade up. But there wasn't really a lot of head-scratching moves and decisions. They put us in position with plays and execution to win. So, it's hard to be mad at the coaches when you have finally a convincing victory. So B for the coaches.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair. Even B, A, splitting them up. I would be okay with that. Of course, we can do whatever the hell we want here. So however you want to grade it is fine by me. Overall, Tops are in striking distance now. This is one that they had to have in order to hopefully get to 500 on the season. And let's be honest, if Western can sneak out of this season at 500, a lot of people are going to go, whew, can't believe that happened. But overall, what do you got for the squad this week?
I'm going to give them a B. I mean, it was a nice, resounding, overall effort, victory. Running game got going. Saw some guys catching balls. Big props and shout out to Therese Trainer, redshirt freshman, that I'm really excited about going forward. I think I mentioned him after the Liberty game. I saw him on the sideline. I was like, who is that huge person down there? 85. Know the name and know the number, guys, because I guarantee he's going to see some upticks and some targets in the years to come, and hopefully the couple games left to play. But that guy's going to be special on the hill, I have a feeling. But just overall, I give him a B. We got a good victory. We got to keep that rolling. We've got at least one more game to play.
Look, we can talk about these wins. We can't say any more about it. This was a great, solid team win. And I say team win, even though this was led defensively and special teams with field position and solid kicks. But look, the offense did enough, and that's all you can ask for. You talked about it. Even if those scores were gone from the defensive side of the ball, the offense still put up enough points to get a win. It would have been a 24-21 victory or whatever. So they did enough. Trace, you've been so patient. He's just been listening to this Hilltopper talking from on and on and on. So you come back in here, you can lead the charge on final thoughts.
Yeah, I was just enjoying the Hilltopper talk. You know how that goes. But no, I mean, as far as my final thoughts goes, I mean, I know we were kind of maybe alluding to it a little bit earlier there, talking about Marshall's ranking in the inaugural, the debut of the 2020 College Football Playoff Top 25 rankings. Of course, we know Marshall goes number 21 in the first poll. And I mean, I think if you were realistic about it, like heading into it, you knew Marshall was not going to be what they were ranked in the AP. We know the history of this committee. We know how they operate, and they operate very flawed. So we knew what was coming. We knew they were not going to be ranked number 15 or number 16 or whatever they were at that point. They weren't going to be there. So, I mean, and it's like I tweeted. Ultimately, though, 21 isn't that bad. I mean, it's not that bad of a spot. It's the highest Marshall's ever been in the College Football Playoff rankings. That's the highest a Conference USA team has ever been in the College Football Playoff rankings. I mean, so it's not all bad. I mean, we know it's very aggravating. I will say that, because we think that Marshall's better than that, and especially when you got bunch of 2-loss teams ahead of North Carolina and all these teams that don't deserve to be that highly ranked. They're ahead of Coastal Carolina and Marshall. And it's that just right there just screams that they don't care about the actual group of 5 teams that are really good. They just care about getting Power 5 teams ranked. I mean, it's such a flawed system. They make everything about, they turn everything into a science. It can't just be about results. It can't just be about how good you look. It has to be about your strength of record and your opponent's strength of record and your million different little categories. And they try to turn the game into something that it shouldn't be. I mean, it would be interesting to see where they end up in Tuesday night's rankings, because several teams ahead of them lost. So, but I mean, I remember a few years ago though. So, but that you can't even if teams lost ahead of you, that doesn't guarantee you're going to jump them. Because I remember a few years ago, whenever Marshall was 13-1, it took them forever to finally get ranked in that poll. And one of those examples of holding them back was. At the time, Minnesota was ranked number 25 in the playoff poll, and they had lost a game to Ohio State. Now, granted, it was a pretty close game. But they lost the game and remained number 25. That right there just screams that it's a loser's mentality. It's they played a really good team close, so we're not going to penalize them for it. But yet they'll penalize Marshall at that time for not playing a good schedule and winning every game by 4 touchdowns. I mean, it just could not be a more flawed system if they tried. It's been honestly a joke for a lot of people, and we see it every year. Outside of the top 4, they could really, or outside of the top 6, really, they could care less. BYU's ranked number 14 right now. BYU is 14. You have got to be kidding me. Iowa State's ranked ahead of them. I'm sorry. That is a complete joke. So, you know what? Let them do what they're going to do, because ultimately, outside of the top 4 or 6, then they don't care. They really don't care. So that's just where it is. Marshall just needs to take care of business. Everything else will work itself out one way or the other.
Well, I really don't care if they do care about anybody outside of the top 6, but you have to fight to be the top G5 school. Who cares if you're ranked 22nd if you're the only G5 school in there? That's all that really matters, because you're going to get a seat at the table. And right now, Marshall's like the 3rd highest ranked, and that's not going to cut it. So Marshall really needs Liberty to beat Coastal Carolina. It could happen. Liberty's pretty darn good. They can put up a lot of points, and if they play it all like they did against Appalachian State, I'm talking about Coastal, then Liberty can win that game. Cincinnati just looks like they're good. They're good. So there's nothing to take away from Cincinnati. But look, you talk about a couple of teams that are ranked ahead of Marshall that shouldn't be. Some of those teams lost. The Northwestern is no longer undefeated. They dropped behind Marshall in the AP poll and the coaches poll. I mean, I thought for sure Northwestern would be the team that landed right in front of Marshall. You know what I mean? But they didn't. Who else? Oh, Oregon. They lost. So they're no longer undefeated, and they were ahead of Marshall. And Texas was ahead of them. Yes. North Carolina, they're still there, but they lost to Notre Dame. So that probably won't affect them that much. So I get what you're talking about, but Iowa State, to me, they did have a big win. They're going to the Big 12 title game. Good for them. But they lost to Louisiana, who's not even in the top 25 of the college playoff.
Louisiana handled them too.
And they're good. Louisiana's a good team.
Yes.
So it is what it is. But look, the fact of the matter is Marshall has absolutely been obliterated by not playing games. And a few weeks ago, Chuck Landon wrote that article about why would you put UMass on the schedule and you're just whatever. And we saw why, because they needed a game. They stood pat by winning that game. And now they lost the Charlotte game. They lost a little bit of ground because Coastal played. And, like I said, they won. You got to move them up. You got to. Fair is fair. But if it comes down to it, if Cincinnati loses a game, if Marshall and Coastal keep climbing the rankings and then Cincinnati loses a game, and that the game losing Charlotte keeps Marshall behind Coastal Carolina and Coastal goes to a New Year's Six bowl because of that will be devastating. Devastating, because Conference USA had the opportunity to put games on the schedule. We should have seen UAB at Marshall last week. Should have happened. Now, there's no reason it shouldn't have happened. The games were canceled on a Tuesday. They could have played them on a Sunday. It didn't have to be Saturday. Hell, they could have played them on a Monday. It doesn't matter, because Marshall was heading into a bye week anyway. So Conference USA is just doing no favors, and I don't understand why. Your marquee team this year needs games on the schedule, and you're not doing any. You don't have a backup plan. Like, you should have a backup plan. Pair some teams to get some games together. All right, if you guys get canceled and you guys get canceled, you're playing each other so that everybody knows that. You know. But Conference USA is very reactionary. They're not proactive, and we see it's ultimately going to hurt their best team in the conference this year, which ultimately hurts every team in the conference, because that's going to limit the revenue sharing, because the better bowl you get, the more money you make, the more slice of the pie for everybody. But anyway, it will be interesting to see where the Herd lands. I expect him to possibly move up and maybe get inside the top 20 this week, just because of who all lost ahead of them. So, Steve, let's talk final thoughts. I mean, we don't have to talk about college football playoff, man. We got a whole lot of different stuff we can chat about. What do you got final thoughts this week?
Man, I mean, it sounds like, listening to y'all's final thoughts, man, voter fraud is real in the United States.
It's real.
Multiple levels.
We'll say that
bias
is real.
We're not going to get political, but man.
Bias is real. That's what is real.
Bias 100% is real. I think, and I've said it for a long time, I think preseason rankings should be gone. Don't even put out a ranking until about week 5.
Yep, that's my feeling too.
Some teams are, that might start down in the hundreds, and all of a sudden they're a top 20 team. Where would they have been if their preseason ranking was, top 40?
Yeah.
I realistically think Marshall might be closer to a top 10 to 15 team. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to back down from that. I think they're a very good football team on both sides of the ball. A lot of good players. I think their quarterback is the perfect straw to stir that drink. And unfortunately, it's been in a year where games have been canceled. It's cost them some possible ranking by not playing games. But you all have a very good football team. And yeah, that the bias in the football playoff selection is very evident, and it's a yearly thing. And, playoff expansion should 100% happen. I know we've talked about 18, 16 team, whatever it is, scenarios. It's doable. It can happen. But, when you start talking about taking money from the big P5 guys, obviously they tense up a little bit and don't want to share the wealth to us lowly commoners in in Conference USA. So I definitely hear you, and I feel for you, because I definitely agree with every point that Trace made. And just look forward to hopefully a strong end to this football season and some good bowl game action, hopefully from both of our schools.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Closing out strong would be great. We've saw just a tremendous amount of bumps in the road early in the season for Western. And if they can ultimately land a bowl game and win that bowl game and come out a 500 team, it's going to be nothing short of, I won't say amazing, but it's going to be pretty eyebrow raising to think, man, we started 4-5 or whatever, and ended up, 6-6 or 5-5 or whatever that would ultimately end up.
I hear Montgomery's real nice around Christmas time. So,
well, I know what else. Tampa's real nice around Christmas time. I know that. I've been to that bowl the past 2 years watching Marshall play. Now, granted, it wasn't the ending I wanted to see last year, but hey, only having to drive 20 minutes down the road to watch one of your teams play is pretty awesome. But look, I want to talk about what you were mentioning earlier about preseason rankings. I have long since thought that they should not come out in any shape or form until, like you said, week 5. I was thinking like week 6. I want the out of conference schedules completely gone. I want, Ohio State and their 3 MAC home games completely off of the schedule. I want them to get into conference play and start playing some teams of their own caliber. And then let's see where we rank teams. And the example I'm going to use this year is a little bit unfair, but it's very telling. And I've said it before. I've tweeted it a couple of times. It's Indiana, right? They beat Penn State, who was preseason number 6, who won their first game Saturday. They were 0-5 playing 1-win or 2-win Michigan, and they got their first win this past Saturday. And by beating Penn State, Indiana went from not ranked to number 17 in the country. I mean, in 1 week. And they beat essentially an 0-5 team to get there. So, yeah, the bias is real. So had that not happened, had those rankings not been out, and we've been 6 weeks into the season before rankings come out, that wouldn't have happened for Indiana, because Penn State wouldn't have been nowhere near number 6. So, I'm not saying Indiana's not a good team. They are. They're absolutely a good team. Their only loss this year is to Ohio State, and they made it a close one, 7-point loss. I mean, at the Horseshoe. So they're a good team. I'm just saying their road to being a top 10 team wouldn't be that way right now. Basketball season is upon us, and I swear, guys, we're going to figure out some kind of format to start talking hoops. I know you guys love that. Steven's trying to work something out with someone in the Western Kentucky circle to see if they can put together some episodes for you. And I know Trace is wanting to do the same thing, but just have a little patience with us. We will try to get you guys covered. So until next time, take us out. Steve and Jet.
Go Tops.
Hey, Mommy.
Yeah.
Go Tops, go Mommy.
I can't top that. But go Herds anyways.
Oh, that was awesome. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later, guys.